Drew. Our last speaker is another athlete whose football career was cut short by a series of injuries on the field. John and I got in touch after I heard that following his experience, he was doing his senior project at Upper Marion High School on concussions in youth sports. I was working to make sure his teammates know how dangerous an injury can be and why they need to speak up when hurt. He has shown maturity behind his years, and it is great to have him here with us today. John Gonoude, who is a senior and is graduating in a couple weeks and on his way to University of Pittsburgh next year. Great, thanks, John.
Thank you, Tim. Now, what happened to me was an unfortunate result of the culture of contact sports at the high school level, which includes a lack of education on the risks of repetitive head injuries, as well as poor communication between coaching staffs and athletic trainers. Mild traumatic brain injuries are an inherent risk of contact sports, but the ways in which we manage them are essential to the prevention of further damage that may hold any potential development of a severe neurological condition. Poor management and disregard to the safety of an athlete is the reason why I can no longer play football. During my first varsity football season as a sophomore, I was blindsided by our fullback during a training camp practice following a blown whistle that had marked the conclusion to a play that had just been run. My head collided with the ground, causing me to black out for several seconds. I was left in a state of unfocused vision with a pounding headache. The coach told me to see the athletic trainer, and I was later diagnosed with a mild concussion. I was completely unaware of what a concussion really was. All I knew was that I had a headache, and the headaches had never stopped me from playing before. The trainer had told me that I had to wait a week to be reevaluated. When Monday came around, we were on the bus to Lehigh for 3 days. All there was to do was eat, sleep, and play football. Once we settled in that morning, in preparation for the first practice of the day, I dressed up and approached my coach in an effort to convince him that I was fine. There was no trainer present that morning, and my coach allowed me to play despite the fact that it had only been 6 days since the occurrence of the initial injury, rather than the recommended 7. During the third practice of the first day of 3 days, I was working out with the offensive line participating in a pass blocking drill. A headache began to gradually build after each repetition, and soon enough my vision blurred and pain rushed throughout my head. It felt like my brain was trying to escape my head, and the feeling soon became unbearable as I dropped to a knee and began screaming beneath my mouth guard. I don't remember much after that, but I do know that I wound up in a bed at Lehigh Valley Hospital that night, as doctors were worried that I was at risk for developing second impact syndrome. The professionals at Lehigh Valley were furious when they learned of the situation, and ultimately were the starting point of many individuals who would insist that I should be shut down for the season. For 6 consecutive weeks, I went to bed with a headache and woke up with a headache. I had trouble in school reading and focusing my attention. I found it extremely difficult to concentrate and remember simple conversations that I would have with my family and friends. I would get dizzy walking up the stairs and often walked into rooms in my own home, having absolutely no idea why I was walking into them. I began to feel like I was losing myself. I felt helpless and alone. None of my teammates understood, nor did the coaching staff. A handful of coaches and players criticized me, put me down, and claimed that I was faking my injury, despite the personal hell that I had been going through. With a chip on my shoulder ready to prove myself my junior year, I weighed the emotions and opinions of myself, my family, and my doctors, and chose to make a comeback the following season. By the second week of the season, I had suffered yet another concussion, and watched my football career end before it even started. For so long, I had wondered what was going on with me, why such things were affecting me, and why this had happened to me. I began dedicating a lot of my time towards understanding what a concussion really was, in order to close some doors for me that had been open too long. I can't really blame anyone for what happened to me, because no one knew anything about the effects or risk of concussions, or at least they believed that such tragic complications would never happen to them of all people. I do not want to see another student athlete in my school ever go through what I had experienced. Through self-motivated dedication, I worked at taking on football's concussion crisis at a small-scale level by speaking to football teams throughout our district's programs, spreading awareness and knowledge throughout the school, and holding fundraisers that aim toward the purchase of new football helmets for our high school program. This bill that Mr. Briggs has proposed in Harrisburg is an essential step in the right direction in regards to protecting our student athletes. With the nature of high school football and the overall outlook on injuries in the game, not everyone will embrace it immediately. However, it will save lives and time and be a tremendous safeguard towards ensuring the health of the participants in contact sports. It will hold a standard of liability to those in positions of authority and will promote the education of the risks of repetitive head injuries. enforcing smart and safe decisions while emphasizing that it is better to miss one game rather than an entire season. Such legislation is key towards sending contact sports an important message that will one day remove the idea that concussions are a sign of weakness and lack of integrity in an athlete. Through the efforts of education and workings of research relating to this topic, concussions will be treated as a brain injury rather than a joke or insignificant mark that can ignorantly be summarized as a headache. The passing of this bill is a necessity. I would give anything to go back and be able to play football again. And through this effort and through this bill, hopefully no one will have to feel the way that I do.